An Animal Crossing island that looks like a film studio. Did I really think that through? Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and of course, welcome to Framework Picture Studios. Okay, yeah, it doesn't look like much just yet, but these last few days I've been really busy getting all the necessary permits and paperwork set up. Honestly, the bureaucracy almost rivals that of Germany. You know what? Since we're talking about a film studio here, why don't I give you a proper recap? Previously on Framework. Craving a new challenge, I talked to Tom Nook about wanting to move to a different island, and then quickly found and selected the map and was on my way along with my new neighbors Billy and Diva. Yeah. I got to name the island Framework and then met and convinced Eunice, Walker, and Pippi to join the film studio as well. With growing popularity, Framework soon also got its own shop and tailor shop and even a museum, and then Tex, Hamfrey, and Zell moved in. All of that even convinced an A-list celebrity to do weekly concerts, which in turn also led to Nook giving me all the permits required to make any changes about the island. And I also used all of my hard-earned money to expand my house, made a logo, and then rid the island of all of its trees. That sounds like a great place to start, doesn't it? And now I have to get the studio up and running, but it is way too warm in this heat and I can barely think, enough that I have to endure that in real life, right? Let's go ahead and fix that. So much better. Okay, let me think about this. Now, of course, we'll need some sort of infrastructure to get from one set to another, and also some security so that not everyone can just waltz in here. The airport is where any arrivals and deliveries will come through, and then of course there's also the town hall building that's required for any infrastructural decisions. Oh, and I'm not sure I mentioned this, but Nook absolutely refuses to relocate. So how about I turn this part here into a parking lot along with a gate to the studio premises. Now, to make all of this a bit easier for anyone visiting Framework, I would like the infrastructure to be somewhat reflected on the island map as well, which means I will have to establish the street routes first, aka lay down some in-game pathing, and then add the correct tiles on top. After careful calculations, I established that the street would have to be around 3 tiles wide, so I started laying that down and then went about testing the location of the gate itself. Of course, I would have to ensure that it was wide enough for the cars to actually be able to still pass through as well. Once roughly done with that, there are 3 different pillar options to use, with either a light gray, a gray, or a black version. I definitely want this to seem as professional as possible, of course. I mean, we aspire to be a reputable film studio after all. Therefore, I am leaning towards the black one. However, I kind of fear that it would make it hard to find a matching fence option. We'll see about that. You know what? Maybe resident services could be kind of an official building that is close to the headquarters itself. That way, it doesn't actually have to be part of this entrance build. And now, while I do very important infrastructure work, Zell seems to already be honing his artistic skills over by the river. Very promising talent for sure. I decided to extend the surrounding sidewalk tiles as far to the left as the land allowed me, build in some of the street code, and then extended the entire groundwork all the way to the left as well. This way, I'd be able to judge from the airport location whether the parking lot has the desired size. I was surprised that none of the residents had come by so far to try and get their own vision across. Although it is still quite early, maybe they just require their beauty sleep. Well, except for Zell, of course, who we had already seen earlier. No beauty sleep required there. Time to test out some cars in the space, and I think with the gate just 1 more tile to the back, that seems to be a decent size. That's what she said. With more of the surrounding sidewalk breaks down, I also made sure to fill the space in with the appropriate street patterns. For now, I just opted to focus on the plain middle tile first. Any lines and details would then be added later on. I am admittedly a little undecided about this bit here on the side. With such unshapely land, maybe this would just be best for a bit of greenery later on. Everything is covered and so far so good, but I think we all know that if I leave it like this, it'll be pure and utter chaos. Have you seen how people park their cars? We need at least some parking spot markers. All right, this is looking much better already, but I do think I'm being a little too generous with the amount of space the vehicles are getting. Let's maximize the space we have instead. And there we go, that is more like it. Maybe I will also make use of the space on the right-hand side. Now, I do want to install a little booth with like a security guard, as well as some like branded items, of course, so maybe just this front right bit. Further wanting to reduce any crash potential, I also started adding some middle lines as the street then starts leading into the film studio, and then installed some cars and other other vehicles in the space. Time to select a few items to use all around the parking lot, which made me realize that I would urgently need to get started on more orders soon, especially for branded items, duh. Or maybe I would just need to invite my alter ego over again. With a few cars already making use of the parking lot, let's also talk about that security guard booth that I want to install. So I need some type of like a checkout counter vibe, maybe even something with windows. Actually, what are we thinking about these wide display stands? Those work almost perfectly as a booth. And of course, I have to start placing branded things, so a vertical banner with the studio logo goes right by the booth, which also nicely covers the line where the items meet, along with a trash can. I do like the gate a lot, but there might just be a tad too much open space or sky visible in between, so why don't we just pretend as though the gates are currently being opened or closed? Yeah, kind of like that. And then, of course, something is still needed to communicate to the car drivers, like a microphone, duh. Along with a cash register, I would say that is a decent looking booth, right? A brief pocket decluttering to deposit some items that I might still want to use off to the side properly confused Pippi, who then promptly taught me how to be curious. Sorry, Pippi, I promise I'll clean this up in a bit. Okay, not bad, but I do feel like there's still some stuff missing, and especially this part here to the front left seems very flat and empty. I know what you're thinking, more logos, right? I'm sure that we can sacrifice this one parking spot. I mean, it's for the greater good, right? Little did I know that this section right here would be the bane of my existence for the rest of the day. Okay, not bad with the sign, but it's not quite it yet. I do like the addition of the hedges though, because I mean, this area is still missing some of my favorite color after all. Maybe I could try some short, simple panels instead, or this wood partition, and some of the rope partition might be nice as well. Or I also want to see what the stage light looks like when in action to kind of illuminate the sign. All right, well, the rope partition has a nice vibe to it. I do somewhat like the look of the stage lights, but I believe not for this specific area. Maybe the sign is just too small. I mean, the short, simple panels would be a taller option, but that kind of makes all the other decorations a little useless. So back to the wooden field sign for now. And I also installed some street lights. Something about it seems to just not be working out though. Maybe I'll focus on an overall smaller sign like the poster stand after all. And I quite like the idea of a clock here by the entrance as well. All right, now the hedge with the rope partition and the poster stand, I don't mind. There is still a lot of open space towards the left-hand side though. Maybe I can just place another vertical banner alongside some more stuff in the background. I was so lost in thought running to and fro, I even accidentally ruined Pippi's chance at catching something. I'm so sorry, Pippi. I feel like she's really starting to dislike me. With the poster stand now customized and some more green added, it does feel like this area is going somewhere, but I desperately need to do some shopping. I am still missing a pillar, more of the jail bar gates, flags, and floating planters after all. With the order placed and then promptly picked up as well, let's put the items to use. I added the missing gates, swapped out the pillar and included more green, and added the flag as promised. Yeah, that's nice. Now, how about we finally try and bring back some trees? I will start with one over here by the booth, as well as one on the left of the gate. And of course, we don't want anyone venturing out of this parking lot before they haven't been briefed by security. So why don't I also add some more fences to section this entire part off? One more car also joined the parking lot as well, and then it's back to working on the display in the front because something about it still did not seem right. I will spare you the full montage of this though, because you would think that I was obsessed and like a perfectionist or something, and I mean, we really can't have that. Speaking of sectioning off the parking lot though, I also tested out some different fences to use in the front and ended up liking the one with the stone and metal the best. That kind of made the rope partition by our brand display a bit unnecessary though. Yeah, I'm still not done with that part. I had hoped that my villagers could maybe give me some insight, but literally they do not seem to care about this island because they're not around like at all. Okay, but for now the plan was to have two poster stands display some of the current movies being produced in the studio, along with a wooden floor sign that holds the logo, and of course the hedge for some green vibes, which I had actually also extended a bit so that it would nicely go with the stone fencing. Oh, and speaking of green vibes, I think it's time to take a look at those trees fully grown. Oh yes, now that already makes me feel so much better about this. Reviewing some of the security footage, I discovered that I preferred a previous branding setup including even more greenery, who would have guessed, and a fire hydrant to the one that I currently have going on. Getting everything ready to make the necessary changes, I had a bit of a scare with Diva Cross crawling towards me, but she quickly lost interest again. Whew. Now, having those two movie posters there, yes, please. I mean, of course, as like production goes on, these might get replaced in the future, but for now, I really like this. I also finally added the fencing along the sides as well, and might have spotted Diva not so successfully try and pursue the bug catching hobby. Oops. And of course, I'm not quite done with the branding aspect. I mean, it'll never be enough. So I also added some posters to the fences in the back and then caught Diva fail again at bug catching. She then tried to water the plant that's all the way on top of the pillar and started another attempt to catch a bug without any success. Maybe today isn't your day, honey. With the branded fences placed down, there's still a few other things that I might like to try and incorporate. What about a utility pole here? And maybe over to the right as well. And then this part by the booth could be a little bit more messy, maybe with some boxes and trash bags and even some paper on the floor. And there'd be some cracks on the floor as well, right? This was also when I realized that I had actually forgotten to get the inner corner piece of my path, so I quickly fixed those up as well. I then decided to continue the road a bit further, even if just to imagine this is actually leading somewhere, and then went right back to adding a few more details to the parking lot like the meter and pipes. Oh, and should I also plant another tree to this side here? Actually, speaking of trees, much more greenery would be needed around this place, especially now with the basic outline standing. I'm not quite sure which ones would even grow around this place, so let me just do some random happy planting for now. And while I run around, lay down a new parking lot and streets, move entire cars with the sheer strength of my little ball hands, and plant an entire forest worth of new trees, Zell and Pippi are having the time of their lives running around on the plaza. Yeah, that seems right. Anyway, let me use my tree magic to get all these to grow. Ooh, it's kind of looking like a thunderstorm is about to hit. But on a good note, it seems as though all the trees actually grew. You would think that after 4 years of playing this game, I knew how this a game. I mean, of course, I only just moved to this island and started planting trees. What? Okay, so let me put in a bit more thought and effort with these trees. Oh, Billy wants to talk to me. Wow, Billy, I am trying here, you know? It's just like last time when he told me to just be happy. You should smile more. Muscles? Which muscles? Is this about the exercise bike? Yeah, hooray my ass. So, trees, am I right? Okay, time to get out of this weather. I am soaked to the bone. After a hot bath and drying my clothes and with much better weather, let's take a look at all these trees. Now, what did I say about a forest? A lot of the times when I try and decorate, I'll kind of find a particular frame that is most likely used for photos and then kind of just try and determine the things that I like or dislike. In this case, I like the third stage cedar tree here, so I would want to stunt that. But then I definitely wouldn't mind the one behind the gate and the booth to grow taller. And I think we could also get away with this one in the front being taller. So we'll let all those grow. And for this left side here, I like the ones on the side of the fence, specifically the hardwood and cedar around the corner. I would like to keep those at third stage. Whereas the cedar tree a bit further to the front might be able to grow a bit taller. And actually the hardwood at the very front maybe should be smaller so the transition to the beach isn't as abrupt. And then there's quite a few things about the back part that I don't like this clump of trees in the corner here. Both the hardwood and the cedar have to go and maybe just be reduced to one tree a bit more to the left, as there's currently kind of a lot of free space there. And then the double hardwood and cedar also don't seem ideal. Maybe I gotta switch those around as well. Nothing like uprooting an entire tree and carrying it in your pocket, am I right? Briefly interrupting the tree talk, as this was also when I started thinking about placing the first few smaller sound stages close to the entrance, so I used some of the wide display cases to kind of evaluate the size of the houses and see whether I kind of like those here. Now, that was a lot of small decisions, so let's just go and see if all the tree planning actually made any sense at all. Okay, here we have the right-hand side, because everyone loves a good before and after. Here's the area without the trees, and now with the trees. That's quite nice. And moving on to the left-hand side, first without any trees, then with a couple of the trees planted, and now with the, I want to say, optimized trees. Now, you might call me obsessive when it comes to tree placements, but I genuinely think that this made a difference. This was also the time for any last minute changes. I'm finally bringing the park clock back and implementing another utility pole. Oh, and how about we imagine that there's someone just like unpacking their trunk here or something with some boxes and maybe a camera. I'll also add some more paper chaos and oh, maybe a manhole cover right here. Awesome. I believe I am happy with the parking lot in and of itself. And now before I work on the next few bits, I cannot keep this gem of sound designing from you. Seriously, Animal Crossing, where's the option to mute animal sounds? Enough of that though. Let me work a bit on the overall infrastructure so that all of us kind of have a better idea of what'll happen next. So how about we go from the entrance, we kind of drive past the small sound stages to then the headquarters somewhere over here. On my planning trip, I also actually stumbled into a conversation between Zell and Walker. Turns out that Walker would like to learn how to be cool. Okay, we might all need this advice, so let's listen. Okay, fashion and hairstyle are important. Good, good. Those departments are planned. Your personality and what's in your heart. Okay. Oh, and Zell also said flashing bells never hurt. Now that I can get on board with. I think Walker loved this advice. However, I'm not sure he quite understood it. With the spots for the small sound stages marked, the road would need to lead past these, of course, and then continue behind resident services and ultimately lead to the headquarters, aka my house. I think I'd like for you to not really see the resident services building when you're on the road itself. Hippie, meanwhile, seems to be working out her frustrations with me from earlier in a little workout. With serious road work ahead, I even needed to adjust the water escaping here, but sooner or later it would probably all have to be removed, to be honest. And then it was time to lay lots and lots of pathing. First the sidewalk on both sides, then the dirt path to guide the way on the map, and then the street tiles themselves. Hippie quickly came over to inspect my work, holding wood that she gathered from the very many trees around this part, obviously, and then proceeded to brag about her posing skills. Gosh, fame is already changing them, I'm afraid. So I had asked around to see who would be interested in being in charge of one of the sound stages, and Tex volunteered. Although he kinda seemed a little indifferent though, not gonna lie. That is not really the type of passion that I would hope for on a film set. And then I also decided to open applications to directors, and set builders, and really anyone who would be interested in working on framework, prepped a house plot for them, and then decided to check out who applied. I first encountered Lionel, a very snobby seeming fellow dressed in nothing less than a royal outfit. We are not looking for red flags, thank you. And then I ended up meeting Agnes, who applied for the makeup department. Oh, and she loves parties. And I mean, with Tom Nook still on framework, I think that can be arranged, right? Now, with this planned as a soundstage, Agnes of course can't stay in the spot, so some more infrastructural work would be required. Tex had moved to the new spot and Agnes has joined framework. Anyone who still needs some convincing, by the way, look at how her ear flops. Oh my god. A brief plaza break and very important chat with Humphrey, and back to the hustle. The opening from earlier still isn't yet filled, so I will go ahead and prep another plot. The last one, in fact. And then I quickly met Marshall, a young director eager to join Framework Pictures. That sounds like a plan to me. My next day then started quite interesting, I might say, as Diva ran up to me and asked if I have ever gotten a cold chill right to my bones. Well, yes, I believe I got one just now. Oh, and speaking of, I've read your comments about her fitting the movie star vibe and all, and I get it, I do, but also, I'm sorry, it'll be a no from my side. And now with Marshall all moved in, it is time for a bit of planning and organizing on my end. Let's start by moving Agnes somewhere else. I do have different plans for the makeup and hair department after all, and then this spot will instead be occupied by our newest addition, Marshall. And now I had big plans of inviting the highly requested, the one and only star producer and director, Marlo. So I started conversations and contract talk with him. He required some jail bars, a bonfire in a pot, and in turn brought along with him a red Sprite costume, a blue do-rag, and a knit hat. Those are some interesting movie plans happening, I'm sure. Having finally convinced Marlo to join Framework Pictures, I also learned that Billy wanted to actually move out. I wish him the best. Ultimately, I just think that we both had very different ideas when starting this journey together. Bye, Billy. In the meantime, Agnes also ran up to me all excited and told me about all the new gossip, meanwhile giggling along happily. She seems to settle into her role quite well, I would say. And speaking of settling into your role, I also remembered that Humphrey had told me about his dream of working as a director earlier. I sat down with Tex again, and he easily agreed to hand a spot over. Directing might not really be his thing after all. And so we have our lineup with star director Marlo, his apprentice Humphrey, and the young director Marshall. What do we think? Now, of course, these houses look nothing like sound stages yet, but apparently in order to change them, I need some sort of special permit for which I have to work. What exactly have I been doing this entire time? Hello? Anywho, I can't lie, I am quite exhausted after all this house moving and contract talk, so I think we'll have to leave this for another day. What do you think I should build next? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. The next video might be a long play. I hope you all have a fantastic time until I see you in my next video. Bye everyone!